All right, y'all, buckle up because today we're talking about movement in the early republic. And no, I don't just mean squeaky wagon wheels rolling across muddy roads, though that's definitely part of the story. When we say movement, we're talking about people, ideas, and identity all shifting around and shaping what it meant to be American after the revolution. And let me tell you, the vibes were complicated. So, picture this. We've just won independence, and suddenly the big question is, who are we now? It's kind of like America just transferred to a brand new school. You're not British anymore, but you're not totally sure what your new aesthetic is supposed to be. Time to try out some different looks, figure out who your friends are, and maybe start a little drama along the way. Now, here's the thing. Those regional differences from the colonial era, they didn't just disappear. New England kept its church bells ringing and ships sailing. The South leaned harder into plantation life, building its economy and society around slavery. And the frontier? Oh, the frontier was still given rugged independence. Those folks were basically living off grid before it was trendy. And if some far off government tried to tell them what to do, that was going to be a hard no. So, yeah, not exactly one big happy family. More like three cousins at Thanksgiving, side eyeing each other's casserole and politely pretending everything's fine. But here's where it's going to start to get interesting. Change was also in the air. The revolution had sprinkled its glitter everywhere. Liberty, virtue, republicanism. People were starting to think of themselves less as Virginians or New Englanders and more as Americans. You could see it in the culture. Charles Brockden Brown had started writing novels that actually felt American instead of knockoffs of European stories. Gilbert Stuart painted George Washington so many times that his face became the Beyonce of the early republic. You couldn't escape it. And don't get me started on the architecture. Pierre Lafont designed Washington, D.C. with domes and columns straight out of ancient Rome, basically screaming, "Look at us! We're the new republic on the block!" Meanwhile, people weren't just sitting still. Farmers, families, and dreamers packed up wagons and pushed west. New towns popped up, land got cleared, and a whole new frontier culture of independence took root. But here's the tea. That opportunity came at a huge cost. Native Americans were pushed off their lands again and again. Frontier farmers clashed with distant governments they didn't trust, leading to uprisings like Shays' Rebellion and the Whiskey Rebellion. Try taxing whiskey, and suddenly you got pitchforks in your face. The message from the frontier was loud and clear. We'll do things our way. Thank you very much. But now, let's talk about that elephant in the room. Slavery. You cannot skim over this part. In the North, some states began gradual emancipation, slowly moving away from slavery. But in the South, slavery expanded and became even more entrenched, especially as cotton started its rise to power. And hovering over it all was a giant question mark. Would slavery spread into the Western territories? No one had the answer yet, but the argument was already simmering, and trust me, it would boil over later. So, while all this was happening, women were handed their own special role in the form of Republican motherhood. The idea was simple. Women weren't given political rights, but society decided their civic duty was raising virtuous sons to be good citizens. To pull that off, women's education started to be valued more because, hey, how can you raise future statesmen if you don't know your civics? But don't let that fool you. It still reinforced traditional gender roles. Women were confined to the home, just with added pressure of shaping the republic through their children. And yet, in that contradiction lay the seeds of something bigger. Later, women's rights activists would look back and say, if we're so important, shouldn't we actually get some rights of our own? And that brings us to the contradictions at the heart of this whole story. The Revolution gave Americans a shiny new sense of identity built on liberty, equality, and self-government. But not everyone was invited to the party. Enslaved people, Native Americans, women, and poor white men were excluded from full participation in this shiny new republic. America proudly declared itself the land of freedom, while denying that freedom to huge parts of its population. That's the messy, inspiring, frustrating legacy of the early republic. So let's wrap this up with the takeaway. Regional differences, still strong, but revolutionary ideas were spreading and creating a shared sense of American identity. Westward migration brought opportunity, but also conflict. Slavery deepened the divide between the North and the South, and Republican motherhood gave women symbolic importance without real power. And hanging over all of it was the contradictions between America's ideals and its reality. A contradiction that would spark reform movements, conflicts, and debates for centuries to come. Looking back, America borrowed heavily from those Enlightenment ideas and colonial traditions. Looking forward, every major reform movement, from abolition to women's rights to voting rights, would keep asking the same question: who actually counts in We the People? And that, y'all, is the T on movement in the early republic.